All right, everybody. Yay! Welcome, Splice. Welcome to New Orleans, friends new and old. Tonight we have a great lineup. We're going to do it in two sets, 5 or 6 for the first half, a break of about 15 minutes, and then the second half. I'm going to have Sean Monroe. I'm Rodrigo Toscano. Henry Goldcamp and Sean Monroe and I run the Splice series. The first person, Sean, where are you?
Right over here.
Okay, bud. Yeah, so Sean Monroe is going to introduce the reading at large. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Hope everybody got some king cake. There's 3 or 4 slices left. Tonight's performance celebrates the community of poets who have supported Splice. Those who have visited and performed here in the past, those new voices we are fortunate to welcome into town this weekend for MLA, and the thriving poets who attend these performances, which is to say, a celebration of a particularly grassy corner in the field of poetic production, where poetry's social, aesthetic, and institutional meanings are negotiated. As Pierre Bourdieu observes, habitus is a product of history that shapes and is shaped by the social world we inhabit. New Orleans, with its cultural history and improvisational vibrancy, fosters a habitus uniquely suited to poetic experimentation. As someone who grew up here, it has been incredible to watch and participate in the city's poetic sprawling as we become a flourishing node in national and international poetries and poetics. Over the past 3 years, Henry, Rodrigo, and I have dedicated ourselves, our time, our labor, and our capital to grow Splice into what you'll experience tonight. And we thank all of you who come and keep coming to Splice. This symbiosis, this exchange, leads to an incredible discourse, which leads to tensions and conflicts that generate new meanings, ideas, and outcomes. In short, a dialectic, our constant collaborative arriving. Tonight begins season 4 of Splice.
All right.
And hopefully, Splice will continue to lengthen the breadth of our linguistic experiences and torque the boundaries of innovative poetries and poetics. However, Splice is only one part of the habitus here in New Orleans. Here, we're marinated in multiple reading series in every genre. Tons of workshops are available. There are literary festivals for each season, and incredible community bookstores doing non-extractive economic work. The kicker here is that most of the local literary nodes are non-institutional. The people are the culture bearers in New Orleans. And to all these people, who are too many to name up here, thank you. You are loved and you are appreciated. For those who may not know, although most of you do, New Orleans is also home to the New Orleans Poetry Festival, which pops off every April. This year we are celebrating our 10th anniversary from April 10th to April 13th. And we have received 100 event proposals, our most ever. There will be an incredible amount of the field represented at our 10th anniversary. Please keep an eye on NOPF's socials for a slew of tasty announcements throughout the next few months. Additionally, if you didn't submit an event proposal this year, there is still a way to participate in the festival. And this goes out to all of y'all here tonight. The festival's individual reader applications open at the end of the month, and they're an excellent way to perform at the best poetry festival in the United States. You know it's true. You know it's true. Back to the matter at hand and the materiality at ear. Tonight's lineup showcases a stellar range of voices. And some of the more seasoned attendees may be wondering if we're going to do deep critical introductions for each of these 12 poets. In the interest of time, the answer is no. In the interest of poetics, the answer is also yes, but briefly and immediately right now. I'll read one sentence for all the poets in the order that they will perform tonight. So we'll ask those poets who are performing, we're not going to come up in between, so just kind of try and memorize this order and come up as you come up. If you need help, I'm here for you. Henry's here for your readiness. Up first is Amish Trivedi, who interrogates contemporary life through a minimalist recursive poetics that tangles abstraction and directness. After that is Kate Peebles, who navigates cosmic and intimate scales, blending lush imagery with philosophical inquiry. William Hazard, who conjures intricate experimental poem objects that reimagine the relationship between language and perception. Mandy Gutmann-Gonzalez, who crafts elegiac, dreamlike works that explore queerness, grief, and the porous boundaries of the self. Whitney DeVos, who merges lyrical precision with sharp critical insight, often probing the intersections of identity, ecology, and power. Evie Shockley, who bends and reimagines traditional poetic forms, exploring Black feminist thought and the intersections of history and personal narrative. After those 6 poets, we'll take a 15-minute intermission, and then we'll continue with Laura Jaramillo, who bridges the personal and the theoretical, writing with a fierce intellect and an ear for rhythmic complexity. Clint Burnham, who experiments with language's materiality, often inflected with crispy humor and cultural critique. Carlos Soto Roman, who offers politically charged fragmentary poetics that interrogate national memory and histories of violence. Alicia Wright, who creates vivid multi-layer poemscapes where regionality and memory resonate and converge. Edgar Garcia, who weaves together anthropology and lyricism, uncovering indigenous epistemologies and forms of resilience. And we'll close with Michael Martin Shea, who engages with textual instability and multilingualism, crafting poems that interrogate and disrupt borders. Let's get this poetry party started. Please welcome to the Splice stage, Amish Trivedi.
New Orleans unfolds for me every time I come here, and I fall just a little bit more in love, and I'm a little afraid it's starting to become kind of obsessive. So I'm sorry to follow Sean, as always beautiful, with the most depressing poems you've heard. Sorry. Feels like on brand. We all have to be we're all brands, right? So these are all poems from a new book manuscript that's out in our beloved contest system. So, okay, pause for laugh. Okay. So this is a poem called Little America. A place on the map with a line drawn through it fits springs of geographies to make sense of the formless. Everyone loves me when they're drunk. Lovable is a disgusting word. It means someone else should love us, but not you. Never you. We name the animals that can't name themselves, cannot identify themselves by the number of cells divided or by the motion in their souls. We categorize life because we have no way of understanding death, defining the countries of. My body is unsymmetried, unable to slice equally and be called without deliberation. The rules we make for children to learn justice are flawed. Name the points where the knife refuses to cut. One of my eyes is always closing, unwilling to give in to light that fancies penetration. In the outline of a lucky palm fish across the back, a history of apertures, phobia of small observances. The last time I read here was October of 2022, and there were there was a Marshall stack behind me, and I don't know what you guys did with it, Saturn Bar, but I'm not going to come back if it's not going to be here in the future. This is a poem called, it just looked cool. Yeah. Like, amps always look cool, as I wear an amp hat. Anyway, this is a poem called The Chameleon Effect. It's going to be out in American Poetry Review whenever they do their thing. In an aviary, the ornithologist and starling are both observed. There will come a time when there is nothing but time, without witness, no one who records the waves of time and the oscillation of its strings. The horsehairs cut harsher on downbow, the slice of notes that indicate not resolution, but continued tension, a discontent, unease in how the sounds wash over us. Or perhaps in the back of the hall, a gesture to the past mimics our awareness that there will come an end to entropy when we relapse into it. I had another joke here, and I can't remember it
That's a joke.
Thank you. Thank you. This one's called
It's a
Stop.
good one.
I'm doing what I can. I'm working with very little here. This one's called Stop Date. The more I dive, the more ocean there is. I remember the marks the road left on my face, the sustained drip of blood. The earth could damage like that. Space has no temperature, and a compass points in no direction anymore. Resisted as silent the treasons of an off year. Perhaps me that the next thing, promise me that the next thing you'll do is go up to that man and tell him the truth. There is a guilt of abandoning, of rejecting every room you're welcomed into. Light ceases to be motion's tool against dark. Asking me where my heart is buried gets no response as river carries to sea. Space is too much to comprehend when one cannot unsee the objects before them as the contents of the world and not the world itself. Maybe I can ask just while I still have him around. I brand myself, the flesh fresh on the bone. Thank you guys so much.
So tall. Oh, how's that? Hello. Thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me, including me. It's great to be back in New Orleans and to be reading from my book, The Haunting, which just came out from Tupelo Press on 1st of January, and it feels extra special because I wrote a lot of it here in New Orleans when I was living here. So it gets to kick off its life in the world where it began. And I'm going to read a selection from a series that is kind of scattered throughout the book that are kind of ekphrastic movie poems that are all named for horror films. And the first one is called Kwaidan, which is named for a Japanese horror movie that's actually based on a book of ghost stories that were written in English. And Kwaidan roughly translates to ghost story. A woman returns to the home where she died, a switchblade in every pocket, a silver shade nesting with sparrows in the attic where the family knives are stored. Blades effortlessly up front about what they do best. Not mastering a craft, but crafting paper masks. Take a walk with me, she says. She hovers in a rafter, walk through a thresher, remembering the uncut days, but shredded, gravel, good as emerald, swinging bottle green, drape her sword-threaded clavicle. The pointed rush, a yellow slip hangs over a screen. Husband, you chose another. So she comes back, all edges, a sharp fog woman, rain painted thick against the window. She watches with her fingertips, dragged through ragged mist, flays it with a touch, the groan, a white robe, indigo fringe, hands and arms made of glass and steel, visceral daggers, cleave her widowed parts, gutted eyes, lungs, spleen, heart, dangles black hair, bandages thread wind. She waits for him behind a door, floating razor blades, redder than exile, in a swell of frayed bone and ribbon. And next, this one is called Prom Night. And it goes out to all the glitter on the floors of New Orleans. I know that I think I still have glitter in my stuff. It's everywhere. Prom night. Trails of glitter tracked inside my walls. I'll never be rid of the pink and gold flecks stuck to my shoes, my heart, my hair, with sweat. A glistening I've followed everywhere. There is nothing I want to let myself love more than dancing and falling so far into a song's wound, a glowing grave all tangled with words, So I ask the dance floor to swallow me whole. This one is called Leave Her to Heaven, which isn't technically a horror film, but it is a horrifying film. And I love it, recommend it. Leave Her to Heaven. Eternity is the exact shade of lime as my seat cushion. The same amount of time it will take to sit in this clinic and listen to nothing compares to you in its entirety. As a nurse draws blood from a faint vein, she flicks at its shying, the needle pressed into a bruise, finding only unpolished marble. Think of the time you hurt most and how it gave birth to you. A sequel. Test results indicate there's more to the story because the end of a story is only a fallen body before it rises. Again, the room was a rectory. Miracles sting me. I bleed like a stone saint. Okay. And this one is called Suspiria. The rain's a dance rehearsal that never ends. Sheet after sheet after sheet, draped and gauzy, bloodied glass arabesques beyond light. I turned my head and there was a witch and cypress needles. Knobbed and knuckled, I wanted to get closer, but can't reach her cold tongue, no matter how close she passes. But I touch and am revolted, riveted, riven with thick pigment, and think of mold, a growing green skin over forgotten milk cupped inside my breast. Of course, men invented time to cross-stitch the costumes on tighter than blood, and leaves are their own hour hands. Clocks chased with fever water and finger-painted irises around a window, blinking red sun between lamps in the courtyard. Below, a room of sharp-boned women working hard at pointing their toes to a metronome swing. Rip, rip, blades through a rib cage. Bird feathers everywhere glued to the ceiling with sticky saffron paint. I've never been more scared of anything than I am of myself as I leave the forest for the city. Happy to be sad in both, truth be told. There was a mosaic outside a dance academy in New Orleans where I stood staring through myself, goblin-esque in mirror shards pressed against angry clay, barbed voices in the night. An ugly bathroom vanity, its smashed particulars set to look like razor flames, crowning a stabbed heart. And yes, it was dramatic as all that. I raised my voice high and it crashed, candied alive, hidden with keening cats in tall grass. Thank you.
really wanted to sit on that brick. It feels good. It's cool. Thank you so much for having me. I'm William Hazard. I haven't been in New Orleans in a while. I grew up in Chicago, and there's also a river there and a lake. And in that sense, it is maybe a little bit similar. This piece is about that. It's called Other. It's dedicated to my friend Gaylord DeWald. Good. Chicago were characterized by drunkenness and drudgery. These sometimes alternated with each other and sometimes overlapped, which is to say that drunkenness was itself a drudgery, just another thing I had to do. I worked in a coffee shop and hated it, and hated myself for hating it. The coffee shop sold these fancy pies. The place's founder had been a pastry chef, or so I was told. She was never around and always seemed to be in Switzerland or somewhere like that, which struck me as suspicious. I worked at the coffee shop for several years, but never met her. In any case, the pies were good, they were expensive, and people bought them. My perpetual state of hangover precluded any meaningful upward mobility for me within the organization. But after working there for a couple years, I was entrusted with taking inventory of the pies while closing the shop at night. The person who had been responsible for this task before me showed me how he would grab a couple pies to trade for their approximate value in beer at a bar down the street. This quickly became my nightly routine: close the shop, take some pie, go to the bar, exchange pies for beer, and drink a six-pack by myself while reading Deleuze for a few hours. On the way home, I'd grab another six-pack to finish myself off. This continued for several years. As my time in Chicago drew to a close, I tried to do Chicago things. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen the lake, so one night after the bar, I brought my six-pack to the beach instead of going home. It was a cool summer night. I found a concrete ledge to perch on. The breeze threatened to sober me up a bit, so I opened a beer.
The way it works back or whatever.
The night was starless and quiet.
The way it works.
No one else seemed to be around.
And I could see this.
It was late.
The way it works back or whatever.
I looked out at the
And I
lake.
could see this.
The water was darker than I
The
remembered.
way it works back or whatever.
It was black.
And I could see this.
Black like the sea and under Milkwood.
The way it works.
Slow black.
Or whatever.
Slow.
And I could see this.
Black.
Maybe a
Pro
middle-aged
black.
woman.
Fishing boat
The
bottom.
way it works back or whatever.
Bible black.
And I could see this.
It blended with the sky.
The way it works back or whatever. And I could see this. Maybe a middle-aged woman. The way it works back. The way it works is or whatever. And maybe a middle-aged woman. The way it works is or whatever. And maybe a middle-aged woman. The way it works is or whatever. And
A man walked up and joined me on the left.
The way it works is or whatever.
He seems to be quite a bit
Maybe a
older.
middle-aged woman. The way it works back in those days was you could have a visa, but you had to like leave the country every, I can't remember.
With a
it was
gesture,
30
he asked for a beer and I gave him one. I gave him a cigarette too. We sat for a while in silence, drinking and smoking, looking at the lake. After about 10 minutes, he spoke. He asked me quietly, almost in a whisper, "Can I suck it?" "No," I said, "thank you." He asked again, and again I declined. He hedged. "Can I touch it?" "I'd prefer that you didn't," I said. Finally, he asked, "Can I see it?" And I paused. It wouldn't harm me, and it seemed like it might help him. I undid my belt, unbuttoned my pants, and pulled out my penis. He looked at it. I looked at the lake and felt the cool breeze wash over my cock. "Can I suck it?" he said. I buttoned my pants back up. "All right," I replied. "I think that's enough." Thanks.
That was an excerpt from my book Aeon, which uses archival research on the Salem witch trials to uncover the power and violence residing in the language of the legal system. I'm going to be reading one more poem. This is a poem about a very hungry witch. Confession of Sarah Good, Hungry Witch, March 1, 1692. So, not wishing to be God's fright, I had myself coppice hid. But just as hunger coerces cornered rabbit to wolf jaw, I've seen myself around from door to door, where bystanders say byes with earth stuffs. Rain spit, rain rocks in my direction. Ready am I to confess my hunger. Oh God, have mercy on this humble corpse, which, flattened low by desperation, partook in the following mischiefs. Myself turned into a rabbit and ate my neighbor's lettuce. Myself turned into a snake and devoured my neighbor's hen eggs whole. Myself turned into a little girl and sucked on the teats of my neighbor's cow and drank till full. Myself turned into a ram, mounted my neighbor's sheep and took the extra lambs. Myself turned into a pail and slurped my neighbor's butter as I churned. Myself turned into a goat and ate my neighbor's horsewhip like jerky. Thus, I pass my hunger onto my neighbors who call me unsavory, though I taste of their groceries. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Whitney DeVos. Thank you so much to Sean and Rodrigo for the invitation. I'm really touched to be here. And I'm going to read 3 monologues. They don't have any titles. Those are going to take up about half of my presentation. And the first half is going to be a kind of contextualization of this very much evolving, in process, ongoing project, which is to say that you're going to get the very tiny portion of what's left of my MLA brain. Okay. Leopoldina Rodriguez was born in Cuba. Her mother worked as a maid in the Pedroso household, a powerful family of bankers who arrived on the island as Spanish colonists in the 16th century. Little is known about her father or her other ancestors, only that Leopoldina, famed for her beauty, had both African and Asian heritage. Her looks, combined with the education she received in the Pedroso home, where she learned to read and write, were, as one scholar puts it, quote, useful in attracting cultured, financially secure men of influence, end quote. Leopoldina met Ernest Hemingway for the first time in Spain, where she was the mistress of José Antonio Primo de Rivera, founder of the fascist party executed by Franco in 1936. After Primo de Rivera's death, Leopoldina returned to Cuba, where she opened a dress shop that went out of business during the Great Depression. To support her son, she became one of 5 courtesans or sex workers de lujo who frequented Constantino Rivaligalgua's bar El Floridita, Hemingway's famed Havana haunt. There, the two are said to have talked, laughed, goaded each other on, exchanged local gossip, fought, and shared stories about, quote, sad kings. In one of his I'm gonna skip that, sorry. Over the course of 2 decades, the two became, depending on who you ask, drinking buddies, confidants, lovers, antagonists, allies, friends. One cannot erase the terms that structured their time together. Hemingway paid her a regular allowance, and for over a decade, the rent to an apartment in the Astro building on Old Havana's Calle Infanta, which she visited regularly, often entering unannounced. Still, those who have spoken about their relationship are careful to emphasize that it could not be reduced to a mere transaction, or 2 decades of transactions. Leopoldina likely served as inspiration for honest Lil in Islands of the Stream, but she had a far greater impact on Hemingway than as a character in one of his minor novels. Leopoldina, whom Hemingway called Leo, knew English and gave the novelist feedback on his manuscripts. When she read The Old Man and the Sea, she is reported to have told him, "That old man is as false as the perfume sold at the 10-cent on Galliano Street. He is just a hero you invented." Hemingway replied, "He exists," in broken Spanish. He exists. In fact, it was Leopoldina who had introduced Hemingway to Santeria, popular folklore, Afro-Cuban religious practices, and other aspects of Cuban culture instrumental to The Old Man and the Sea. And it may have been Leopoldina who encouraged him to give back to the communities that inspired the novel. One day, when reading his cards, she predicted that the author would, quote, win the greatest prize of his life for his writings in Cuba. Hemingway, notoriously superstitious, promised her that if he did, he would donate his prize to the shrine of the Virgen del Cobre in Santiago, a place they had visited together. In 1954, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for The Old Man and the Sea and made good on his word. Throughout the 1950s, Leopoldina battled a harrowing case of cancer. Hemingway visited her regularly and paid her hospital bills. During a particularly bitter fight, Leopoldina's niece reports that her aunt told him sharply, quote, "Let's see if you have the courage of your fisherman after you have your entrails ripped out of you, or you are faced with a really desperate situation, as I am now," end quote. Hemingway was speechless. When Leopoldina died in 1956, he paid for her funeral. What we know of her extraordinary life comes from a series of interviews with friends and relatives, many of whom have since passed on. While preparing an article about Leopoldina in 2023, Cuban journalist Jorge Luis Gonzalez Suarez visited the Astro building on Calle Infanta, but was unable to find any relative or neighbor who could speak about her or her life. He writes, quote, "It's as if this singular woman who would capture the heart of the most famous of all North American writers had never even existed," end quote. This is the only known photograph of them. Sorry, it's really small. I didn't know about this screen. On what follows. This collection of monologues tries to imagine Hemingway talking to Leo, sometimes at La Floridita, sometimes elsewhere. It is written in English and Spanish, as I imagine the two interlocutors fell into and out of, Leo more easily than Hemingway. It's written for people who live between languages, nations, regimes, and cultures, as they did and as I do. No translations are provided. Constantino, another one of these big ones, please. Mucho gusto, de nuevo, Leo y Fernando. ¿Quieres otro jabalito? Last time I saw you, you were gazing tenderly at a fascist. Good kid, mixed up. What was it like to turn out the light next to a man like that? To watch as he twists in his sleep, deliberate hands moving unconsciously across the sheets, loading a gun. Surely I'm one. Do you miss him sometimes, like me? Did he speak of dark shapes across the moon, of his mother, the smell damp of wood in the winter? Does their blood too come out singing? I wonder. A few lines by Lorca come to mind. Enough, right? Okay. He was in white pajamas, you know. There was no moon. But I know you don't want to hear it. That gunpowder smell, it sits on the skin, seeps into your gums. You never get rid of it. Everywhere else, death is an end. Death comes and they draw the curtains. Not in Spain. In Spain, they open them. I want to know where you were when the guns went off, what sort of perfume you were wearing, violets, jasmine, sandalwood. I want to know how you got out of bed, managed to get yourself on a ship, how the ship managed to get itself onto the sea, and how terribly the lighthouse gleamed when you first sailed in. What did the seagulls cry out that evening? What shade of white was the foam? And how was it to be alone then, and to be home? Now, what's all this about Maximiliano then, Leo? One of yours way back, you say. Well, imperial is one word I'd use to describe you. The others, oh, hell, it's too early for that. Legion, come on, let's get you another. Constantino, gracias. They say Maximiliano killed 11,000 of Juarez's men, but Austrians think Mexicans love them, you know, still. Y los mexicanos, ellos mueren de risa. Have you seen the Manet's? Damn good pictures. He should have painted you, you know. No, not like Jean. Too much dress, too much white paint. You're already a Manet, though. Why? Look, I told you. It's too late in the day for adjectives, Leo. Christ, coño. Deciduous, you know what it means? Tending to fall off. Like when deer, you know what a deer is? Venadito, sí, drops its antlers. No, not like that. I mean, you shed yourself easily. El tronco, sí, mejor dicho. That's the difference between you and me. I cut the whole damn tree down. Back to Maximiliano then. No, I don't have any happy stories right now. Just your great-great emperor and his great-great end. Fusilado por la República, el cabrón. Gave each of his executioners a gold coin, a real aristocrat. Y su mujer, ya lo sabes, Leo. Constantino, another. To Leo, la deciduous, la pivotal, la free. Now look, Leo, I understand you wanting to go where you've gone. Someday, I'll meet you there. Pero mira, querida espectra, no te apartes. Muy pronto te veré. Thank you. Gracias.
Hey. Okay. I left the poems that I printed in New Jersey. So I am now officially Gen Z. Let's see how many poems I can read. This is an anthem for anyone who needs it. And it has an epigraph from Nikki Finney. The things I give birth to matter. The things that I give birth to give birth to other things. Am I making something happen here? All right. The blessings. I gave mine away. Not all, but the greater portion, some would say. I gave away the ready claim to goodness, to purpose. I gave away Mary, Sarah, and Isis. I gave away necessity and invention. I gave away a whole holiday, but I kept Billy. I gave away the chance to try and fail to have it all. I gave away the one thing that makes some men pay. I gave away the pedestal, the bouquet. I gave away Nell Wright, but I kept Sula Peace. I gave away the fine-tooth comb, but I kept the oyster knife. I gave away the first word the new mouth forms, the easiest to parlay across so many languages. Escaping the maw, I gave away the power to hold and be held in sway. But I kept Cho, Parton, Finney, Chapman, and Tomei. I gave away the Eve who left the garden that day, but kept the cool, green, shady, fruitless, fruitful stay, the evening that did not fall away. Thank you. I hate having to scroll. This is the worst. Okay. If anyone is feeling trapped in the country or otherwise, this is a poem that's not really about that, but I just thought I would read it. It's called Destination. I became a fugitive the first time I sent the W of my wish flying into the dandelion's fro. That white cloud scattered in patterns of maybe, and my thoughts followed. Maybe north, maybe France, maybe my lips the color I was born with. I became a fugitive long before I donned the gear. By the time I slipped myself out of the box of stockings and heels, my fugitivity was old hat. I became a fugitive the first time I looked around the house of could be worse and knew a garret could be better, knew alone could be better. Long before I stuffed seeds into a pillowcase, packed a bag, or earned enough mad money for me to get downright fucking furious, I could tell I was en route to absent. The first time I cast my dreams into a future the shape of my body, my intellect, my heart, I was gone. There was no other space that could contain me. There was only the squeeze into obedience's shadow, or the spill of my elsewhere into watchful silence. I could act my age, behave myself, mind my P's and Q's, but the leaving was already going on. I became a fugitive the first time I looked at a wall and saw a window, when I first felt the bloody nubs where my wings already spread would grow. All right. What time is it? Okay. No. I have time for one more. I like to play with forms. Those were like free verse, but I recently, or like last year, discovered this form, like Columbus, this form called the decima, and it's a song form and a poetry form, and it exists in a number of different Latin American, Caribbean spaces. And I think I cobbled together something that is mostly a Puerto Rican form of the form. And all you need to know is that there are lines that repeat that you might not notice repeating, and there is a rhyme scheme. And it's dedicated to Tamir Rice, who I hope everyone still remembers his name, and Amber Nicole Thurman, who more recent but less likely for you to recognize, is the woman who died for want of an abortion because she was miscarrying. Decima on the fabric of time, Sirius Polaris. The play of light moving through infinite darkness creates large-scale rhythms. Others, deep buried, our own heartbeats generate. The fabric of time is black, a veil through which a brown-skinned boy goes unseen, or might blend in with shadows that attack white imaginations. Track the second hand, the 11 hops between Tamir and heaven. How black child's play compares to the play of light. Moving through life, black's fast at 12 years even. The fabric of time's a shroud that drags everything out, circulates infinite darkness, creates around black people a cloud that justice isn't allowed to freely enter. We count the hours sepsis had to mount its assault before the care Amber needed came. We dare to hold her lost black years paramount. The fabric of black time folds a brutal physics that places their two lives, theft, not in stasis, but proximate to the holds of 18th century ships. Old's not what those captured had coming, yet some held on to their humming long enough to regain, keep large-scale rhythms. Others, deep wounded, hailed time by succumbing. The fabric of black time pleats, expands, contracts, our someday otherworldly, far away, dog star, north star. The now meets our ancient past, and light eats the distance. Freedom dreams wait buried. Our own heartbeats generate the insistent cadence. Thread time, unravel it. Our dead, still alive within us, pulsate. Thank you.
All right, let's give it up for Evie and the first half readers. Okay, so we're going to take a little break here. Grab a drink, whatever. We'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes. Everybody, don't leave. Yeah, and we'll do this again. All right, see you in a bit.
Welcome back to Splice Round 2. First up, we have, give it up, Laura Jaramillo.
Hey everyone, I too am a Zoomer. I'm gonna have to read off my phone. I accept the digital overlords. I'm gonna read a few poems from a book in progress called Burning Sequence. And I was already gonna read these poems before the fires, but now the fires give them kind of a different flavor. So this is the opening poem. And thank you so much to Rodrigo and Sean and Henry. And I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna read the poem. Play the footage backwards. Play the footage backwards, and the girls actually explode out of the lake. The glass glitters backwards into the towers. The hanged man's infinite fall from a flaming turret is placed in the deck of cards on the desk, folded back into representation always. We're the frayed edge, guillotined and spliced. We're like when days of heaven melted inside the projector and I could see a burning hole open inside Richard Gere's face, and I thought, good, fuck your magic hour, fuck your cowboy fantasy forever. We're the spectators and the burning sequence, forgetting itself forever. The fires are virtual, a scythe across liquid crystal, touching cyan, touching magenta, touching yellow. I look on, an observer of an observer, hear myself winding words I do believe in, ones I don't. To be loved, to make money, to feed my house, to lay a truce with things, to manufacture reality with a faulty glue. In the days of enclosure, I'm like anyone playing out the late styles puzzles, like anyone running out the clock, / my feet don't move in the dream, / I should get away to survive. I know this, and my body militates against speed. The terror accretes in our teeth, becoming music, television, and film. And I'm just like scrolling through a PDF to find my poem. This one is called Coronal Plain. A virulent golden spring roars outside louder than I can know when my legs are cramped from laying in this damp bed. Day and night I walk through a door, and that door is time. How suddenly I am no one, yet my back is still fucked. All things blown across a field of static into unreadable ambiguity. I think obsessively about a job. Sleep leaves me. For the 8th time, I have not really answered the committee's question the right job might give me. Wanting the job is only wanting to be moored to the world or floating like a naked woman inside a giant wreath, the winds at each meridian holding her aloft, a fantasy of body as world open and unwounded. Naive to want the world so fiercely as it's dismantled, affection for strangers, accents heard in passing in the before, or the gum and peeling varnish of tables we hid under as children, or the acrylic and wool of other people's sweaters unraveling impersonally now in landfills. To want this world of discourse and dust and shit is a sin. But the earliest remembered feeling is that want of the world, the presence of something, anything that would make it normal to live. And then I'm gonna read one more poem. That waterlogged feeling in the legs as you ascend a rusty platform, climbing up into the ashcan sky, an airplane deconstructing in midair, neither winter nor summer, just the atmosphere holding. Moisture and smoke as some asshole burns their leaves in the distance, a light nosebleed incandescent red on my blue hand, and the deer who seem to know something. Symptom creep. I become organized round the superstitions of sleep, a circle of salt, some crushed Ambien to lead me back down the stairs of this psychic house that exists everywhere around the real house, metastasizing each night. I map its infinite wings with my mind, and my mind does not go. The river is on fire, and its weeping and sweating is on our walls. They say don't wipe it or it'll get into the air, but we wipe. They'll say this is happening because you let others' feelings penetrate your body, but also because you are a bitch. Down towards the concrete slab level of reality, the stairs are burning, and above they also burn. I let the river interpenetrate my heart, and my liver is dotted with powdery white spots where once there was water, now there is not knowing. The house and my mind and the house. In the hours of not being, I shepherd the mice into the crawl space. They warn me to be more shrewd and a little stingy. Don't give too much to experience, and also chew through the water heater wiring. And down into the lobby of the bank that loaned us all that money on fake liquidity. Awake under the smog of pills, someone says, you'll own nothing and you will be happy. And further down into the living room where the 8-foot waves lap at the bay window, down into the master suite, a couple like us in bed, both visited by ghosts. All the while, the stairs burn and burn like a masterpiece, like a poem which has only ever been an argument. Another level down, my foot mistakes something skittering for a roach, but it is a frog. And it asks me, what does it mean to own anything at the end of property? What does it mean to write poetry at the sunset of literacy? Thank you so much.
No to a harm rinse. He's on the street in a vinyl jacket and we talk, then two more come up and someone I knew 20 years ago. They all three have expensive bags of lunch from the grocery. A guy squeezes by with a six-pack before the two cops, male, female, cheerful, elbows akimbo, their hands in fleece jacket pockets. Cheerful, the couple selling their bike on sidewalk. Now two female male cops pulled a large white SUV over their stern. Holditch. Hill figure rhymes with gold digger. Faker in a Carhartt toque. Why marry med is no longer on my contacts. Straight edge shortly after legalization of pot. Gay as AIDS epidemic starts. Cantonese teaching. West Indian teeth chuck. Richer than Croesus, tougher than pleather. Flogging a child for not being able to tie its shoes less enthusiastically than for a real misdemeanor. Theft, breakage, women working, men twerking, I'm shirking. Your Tolstoy told a story on the suzerain tea. A Coke's really local, even then pirated. Perhaps there is no society. Was a class-based roots was, sure, critique of 19th century novels. Sleigh bells, the sound everyone in Brooklyn wanted in 2012. Reading Shklovsky in the White House in 1985, Australian doesn't fit. If we have enough shovels, bad British Columbians. No Fun was a better band than Low Fun. Benefit for the Squamish Five couldn't happen now. University's comments wanted to run academic about RCMP rape of, Auto 2 tale of, as if we were talking about Brer Rabbit. Teenaged Métis girl past their legal department felt, what could go wrong? Alan Dershowitz articles on torture are part of the literature. Sit in a PDF, on the cloud, on a mountain, which is in that country to evade NSA and Himmler, Homeland Security legislation. Poem written outside Kanji Noodle House on the way home from work. Remember when Hunter boots and Kanye West were fresh and you wore them to Glastonbury to see the Sleaford Mods a year after the riot at the Hyatt, lining up at the Hyatt for a Hey Willy Wallacky bus to the battle in Seattle and a rattle in the dash, a play I saw at the Fringe Festival or so at the Heritage Hall when Raymond Dang lived off Main near 49th, walking to the sun that year. hearing about the US invasion of Grenada, or was it the Challenger disaster? Def Dirksen has the line, Tuesday morning coming down. I like Main Street, commercial too. I like both of them. My time watching sports had declined precipitously, but I'd say for football, I'm a CFL man. An aluminum cornered black instrument case in one hand, 2 rolls of coins in another, a top hat with feathers and a reddish-like sash around it. Harry Styles at the Cannabis Expo. The maid's car yellow, Chinese Dylan Thomas in Malay People with a missing bumper. White girl at the wheel, a laptop, half a double recliner couch, child-sized handcuffs for BMO marathon customers. Narrowcasting the plaster caster. Which prison allows Uber food deliveries? Is cancer a serial killer, a mass murderer, a terrorist, or a contract killer? And which do you prefer? Overdosed on fentanyl but lived, or die peacefully with sufentanil? Otto to Auden, proofreading Berlin stories, 4 equally sized 990 Luftballon, into German New Wave and Fassbinder's K-Rel, screened at the RBC Cinema in the mid-80s. Organizing farm workers in the Fraser Valley. I've got to ask you about the tan lines on your finger. He's a very settler, I must say. Haven't got 2 F's to give. You can tell a Dutch woman, but you can't tell her much. Query, did Princess Di ever ask Goya to paint gyoza from Fujiya for brass strings in the nosebleeds or nipple striations from the no-seums? Coasts, mains, mud. If that's not too colonial of me, mind you, freedom from the Isley Brothers may not, whether it's in the R&B, soul, funk, evolution, or series of ruptures. Is it Jesus wept, or Jesus swept, or G-Unit sweats, or solidarity with Wet'suwet'en, most exciting party next door with Unistoten? What's news to me isn't new to you, totes, rad, Cyrilli. I wouldn't say no to a harm reduction approach to pipelines. A few very short stories to finish. It's cold and rainy here. I'm waiting for the bus to go downtown, and a guy walks by wearing a black and white keffiyeh. I'm wearing my red and white one. He stops, says something. I say, hey. He says, thanks for wearing that, if you even know what it means. I say, I do. He's Palestinian from Gaza, says he was a journalist in the 2000s, covered 3 of the wars, TV, worked for Press TV, Iranian, English language, then a Chinese one. His cameraman was shot in the head right next to him. He got out. Through the tunnels into Sinai. They were controlled by ISIS then? Hard to tell what was true or not, but you don't get freedom without some violence. Then some guys came by, asked for a light, then his phone rang, then he took off. I wrote this in London in the fall. The Cock, do you know it? Irish pub, RMT union hangout, grimy, 90% old white guys downstairs, but friendly as hell. Drunk in the pisser, asked if I was a Palestinian for wearing my scarf. Went on a monologue about how I could get arrested as a terrorist, something Nakba. Of course, the British supported Israel back then, and genocide. They just did genocide everywhere they went. Australia, take Australia. He was startled by the super loud hand dryer, probably never used it, then wandered out. This is just a lanyap. Happened today on Decatur, 2 guys in high-vis gear. One of them says to me, hey friend, you know people wearing scarves barfed when they heard they overturned Roe versus Wade. But then I go into that Wagner's around the corner here, and a Palestinian guy says, you look good in your keffiyeh. Bless you and the parents who made you. Thanks everyone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carlos. I used to live in Philly some time ago. Then I moved back to Chile, Santiago. Now I'm back, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much, Rodrigo and Sean, for having me tonight. Y en la soledad ineludible de estas 4 paredes, coroné mis sueños. Cual partículas nocivas coroné mi propio despertar. De entre los más tocados en el fondo del corazón, el pozo de los desperdicios. He aquí la verdadera caverna del hombre. He aquí el naufragio. El sol asoma tras las rocas. Mis manos y mi frente sangran. And in the unavoidable loneliness of these four walls, I crowned my dreams like harmful particles. I crowned my own wake up between the most touch at the bottom of the heart, the cesspit. This is the authentic cavern of humanity. This is the shipwreck. The sun peers out behind the rocks. My hands and my brow bleed. 40th and Walnut, dedicated to the late Dimitri, October 2009. Golinko, a Russian spy and a Chilean astronaut have a Swedish breakfast in an Italian restaurant. Such is the new axis of evil. An alcoholic and culinary socialism. The Red October is nothing but a troop of drunks in baseball caps and jerseys. There are no medals or any possible revolution. A helplessness ethic cuts the environment. At least the coffee mixed with beer leave that taste drill in my throat. But there are worse things than discontent. A rainy night, for instance, a costume parade. Tomorrow is the Day of the Dead. You talk me about zombies, the absolute denial of all rational morality. Outside London, Berlin, 1945, the city is in flames and tears are falling down like Ukrainian satellites abandoned in the middle of nostalgia. L is for lengua and lengua is for language. This is for Ana Bargen. I read somewhere that there is a language for almost everything. German for science, French for politics, Italian for love, English for commerce. I wonder then what could possibly be the language of poetry. The language of poetry doesn't exist. The language of poetry is silence. Food for thought. New literary forms always produce new forms of life, and that is why they are so revolting to the conservative human mind. Anton Chekhov. I am thinking, debating, pondering the idea that maybe the institution of poetry should find more accurate, more effective, more appropriate, more controversial, more sincere, more fortunate, more explicit, more radical, more revolutionary ways to be involved. So I have a book published by Ugly Duckling. It's called Once, after Once 11. I mean, after 9/11, the Chilean 9/11, September 11, 1973. And Whitney is one of the translators, so thank you, Whitney, for that. And check it out if you feel like this is a poem included in Once or 11. A Day in Life, September 21st, 1976, Washington, D.C., the White House. 7:33, the president had breakfast. 8:02, the president went to the doctor's office. 8:10, the president went to the Oval Office. 9:05, the president met with Joan O. March Jr., counselor. 9:20, the president met with Richard B. Cheney, assistant. 10:15, the president met with his assistant for national security affairs. 10:15, the president met with his assistant for national security affairs. 10:15, the president met with his assistant for national security affairs. 10:15, the president met with his assistant for national security affairs. A Day in Life, September 21st, 1976, Washington, D.C., Embassy Row. On September 21st, Orlando Letelier del Solar, economist, socialist, politician, diplomat, and leader of the resistance, his assistant Ronnie Moffitt and her husband Michael were in a vehicle on their way to work. Letelier was driving the vehicle, Ronnie Moffitt was in the front passenger seat, and Michael was seated behind his wife. As they rounded Sheridan Circle in Embassy Row at 9:35 a.m., a bomb exploded underneath the car, lifting it off the ground. Letelier was immediately killed, and Ronnie Moffitt died shortly thereafter at an area hospital. Investigators determined that the blast was caused by plastic explosive molded to concentrate the force of its impact into the driver's seat. The bomb was attached with wires or magnets to the car's underside and blew a circular hole 2 to 2.5 feet in diameter in the driver's seat. A memorial to them sits across from Sheridan Circle. The words justice, peace, dignity are inscribed on it. So this is a poem in translation by the Chilean poet José Ángel Cuevas. I translated this poem long ago with the help of the Philly poet Frank Charlock. And well, it's been a while, so I kind of like tweaked it again with the help of Sean. So thank you so much, Sean. So Black Friday. Let's destroy in our hearts the logic of the system. For the 2 million credit cards circulating in the city, we must not give them any credit in our hearts. Nor to the upcoming sales temples with their discount coupons, new releases, super nothing at all, nor within our minds, maybe nothing. Would it be possible to stop those drug and disenchanted armies with Nike shoe boxes and little Urban Outfitters space hats, sunglasses, and anthropology silk skirts in the illuminated major markets? What does it all mean in real terms? A metaphysical satisfaction of the object, to be another in front of the mirror, the froth of having and getting, all right. To climb up the social ladder, the logic of the system, to feel good about yourself. But could we not get entirely into the game of the hysterical, the self-psychosis, that old shitty game? Play practical jokes on the system. Sick jokes, for example, what if we all declare stop payments? What if we stop buying things for a whole month? What if we organize a mass withdrawal from the social security system that makes capital scratching our money day by day? What about the goddamn health insurance system, the blank checks, those filthy businesses in the life of the fellow man? Only the TV broadcasts its own grunts, that pit of unreality. Imagine perfumes, ointments, beers of all brands, tic-tac, and you can pay your first installment next month. Mountains of smoking items and down payment in cash. Well, hollowhead, stop it, nasty skin, stop shoddy hardcore, cool as shit. You solicit spare change. You're soliciting spare change in the streets. Let's destroy in our heart the logic of the system. No to the commercial spots that fills the heads of the silent majority with garbage. No more. A woman eating soap, asses bathing Coca-Cola, TV extras smelling armpits, models, producers, children, sales for the reinvention of the system, babies, old folks used as a yogurt image. Enough. Psalm. Do not buy anything today, not today. Do not watch commercials today, no clearance sales, no special offerings, not today. Check yourself in the mirror, and in the large waves pounding, meditate on the shores of this bleeding country, the rivers. What are they saying? They're speaking to themselves, but for what? Follow this arrow, meditate in the homes built from cardboard, rain over the dry food sheets, wet clothes. You go down in your thoughts over the poverty line. Repeat, Holy Grove, Treme, Central City, Lower 9, Pigeon Town, Gentilly. I am seeing it here. I am seeing it in me. Sticks, mucus, leaks, dust. Sing your psalm and speak to your interior. Close your eyes. Imagine what you're talking about. And if you can go on, follow your mind to Garden District, Lakeview, Audubon, Bywater. Let's turn to Black Pearl and come back again and again without a pinch of resentment, of or the taste of bile. These are just representation exercises. And for those who run down Poydras and Canal Street, thieves, dancers, dealers, think of the huge silence of the popular masses. Bourbon Street, swept by a lunatic in a pickup truck. The recent past conclude this meditation. So let the TV on, follow the images they offer, look out a window, watch the news, smoke a cigarette. Do you think we have hope? What if we touch the power of the big and serene capitals? Will we be massacred again? Will we be let to drown again? Will there be another Reagan, another Bush, another 8 years, or even worse? What do you think? Do you think so? Me too. But let's agree to turn off the televisions at the same time. We're so many in the same page. We are the 99%, right? Something could happen if we all agree at the time, day, month, and year. More than something could happen. More than something. Wait. Specific instructions are on the way. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alicia Wright. I am so thankful to make it here because I drove through the snow, but thanks to Henry, Sean, and Rodrigo for having me back to read for the Splice. It's encouraging. And yeah, thanks to, it's a real honor to read with all the readers here also. And thanks to everybody for being here as well. Okay, so this poem, I know that they aren't words when I say them. That's what I'll say. Ash Pond 3. The plant plans for it to produce steam power, obfuscatory stacks cap, in place sunk expenditure, filed, failure to disclose, instability issues. The plan, he said, it has a lot of moving parts per dewatering, AP3, hole the water, brown lit, pit and clouded as if fouled. What's kept wet, what can't breathed or better yet believed. I saw slow, illuminated flow take hypotensive knout, Cuprous slip, coattail can't touched, eventually carp, initiative. I don't see my mussel shells that I used to see on the sand. I don't hear the frogs at night singed. If what's burned, that doesn't rise as if ash rises as incinerated flocculent compensatory question of the dead ash plant, matter answered the decay, then decommission, calm air, deep scintilla, burial to lake, a leak, esophageal, grack, millefleur, a farmer's lung, the plan to use and anything that does or doesn't move. I have the poet Bess Miller Brigham to thank for introducing me to this concept called aceldama, which if any of you are biblical scholars, I was unaware of what it is, but that's what the poem is called, and does anyone know? I would be very impressed. It's okay. It is the name for the plot of land that Judas bought with the money he got for betraying Christ. And this is about a traveling preacher, aceldama. Burning being, gathering mass, a man on horseback, low-flung meteor, borne down with purpose, unfurling over the ridge, God's anonymous muscle, moonless shadow, denser than his horse's vessels, tremor and contract, under intent, no step his own, divinely guided between outposts. If a man has no land, he might still possess the words of the Father which spread with him, imagining bread as ashes, giving thanks for his endurance, incarnate state, vesture of wildflowers, here a vast green, luxuriant meadow, in his vision beauty which surpasses, springing up in all directions, as much as the eye can take, countlessness given and adorned. For him, wild strawberries so profuse, his horse's hoofs staining deep red as they tread. For him, his thoughts the seed, himself the lone post oak, each cell a spur, for he's received that which cannot be exchanged, the word become his word alone, portent requiring dispersal. His mission replicates a dandelion whose detonated head falls along the conical hill, obliterating coreopsis like 30 silver pieces gotten when he lands, a betrayal severing communion, darkest lightning in the somber belts of timber. Thank you. And this is another poem. I've used this title over and over again. This is a poem called You're Called by the Same Sound. Not the sound itself at night, but the absence of knowing, the body denying its image, whose mouth open to make imminent ambience, sound movement through air brings its form to you as form, as idea, neither face for memory nor fact, but the whole in the face, for the call to emit through the darkness between leaves, fogs, deposits, slick and waxy, a cloud lowered to the ground. Like sound, it reaches you, history's muted, anacrusis, the call whose source obscured, inverted breath of whale or light, bramble netted, radiating clear, silence before itself incipient, disapparition which touches, sense before its pulse. Thank you.
Am I up?
Yep.
I'm gonna read some poems. From a 16th century manuscript of indigenous poetry called The Cantares Mexicanas. And what is significant about this manuscript is that they're put to paper around the 1580s or so, in time when colonialism had basically happened, such that we have to think of these poems at an intersect between indigeneity and Europeanism, Castilianism and the Americas. And I thought, I wish I actually had the poems with me. But I just have a couple of receipts in my pocket. I'm gonna rock some receipts for you all. Right, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not a very responsible person. Is there dragon fruit or humming jade? Can somebody take a video, Alexis? Come on, get your fucking camera on. Is there dragon fruit? Well, why is the fucking thing fucking up? Is there dragon fruit or humming jade for little birds in shady colonnades? Is there any multitude for the displaced and dead retinues? Subdued like mountain ruins in diamond lakes, they say. It sort of hurts to speak. I think I have a sore throat. Mask up if you go out. I think you might be sick. I see them thus, in masks. Prattling hummingbirds, barking geese, quetzals in the guise of old lords, whippoorwills in white sheets. They cover the city in search of things to eat. Two. Look at me descend into holy total entertainment. Places of screeching fun, speech overhead, not earth, screen dominion. Here, no creature gets it wrong. No intellectual amends to perpend in all day long. Perfection. Perfection. Perfection is clay in the end, not what the plow did. I gotta change hats for this one. That other hat is way too aggressive. This is called Conscientious Objector, and it's written in the Nahuatl from the perspective of a conscientious objector, like a fucking old person was saying. We should not be going to war, but living in a war society. So what the fuck do you do? Your magnificence, I can barely address in my shallow lowliness. How thin I then expect from you, famous Tetlapatzikuatzunitzin, the fucking warrior. You were called to this earth for a while to live in a child's peace, but then the fashions dressed you up, and well, you wore the war skirt and sash. But the bare truth is there's war, always war with its rage and hate, even modifying how friends congregate. I saw you then, famous Tetlapatzikuatzunitzin, in troubled straits and speaking straight. I said less than manly things. To hell with empire and its overgrowth. To hell with the flowers that Connor bade. To hell with the south and east. God damn them that injunct our ease with commands to siege neighbors' walls with to obtain with. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm fucking this up. God damn them that injunct our ease with commands to obtain without cause. To siege, to bring bloody rain on our neighbors' walls. You wanted all that, but not for itself. The trouble is, though war we might hate, it's in war we learn whom to celebrate. Hence this, famous Tetlapatzikuatzunitzin. And this is the last poem. This is a hatless poem. Truest regrets. I'm always upset. Apologies. I'm perpetually surly. I try to help myself, and yet no luck reaches me particularly. I don't necessarily want for riches. I wail, and it's ruefully wretched. I think it's time I die. I think. I may be then again with old friends, happy, fortunate in their company. Here, I hurry to scarcely depend on the cheap will of inane functionaries. I've neither the spirit or the friends. I wail, and it's timidly out of tune. Let no one's heart be hurt to hear it. My blues aren't special unique. I caught a bad wind somewhere in my orbits. Now, I'm just a planet oblique. So, as an apology for fucking that one poem, I'm gonna tell you guys about a dream I had. which is, I don't often share my dreams, except in my books. So maybe some of you have heard a bunch. But I had this dream. Amazing. Give me 2 minutes. It'll take 2 minutes to tell this dream to you guys. I had this dream that Columbus actually never made it to the Americas. And because he never made it to the Americas, there was like 100 years of distillatory period until Galileo Galilei figured out the proportion, length, mathematical distance between Europe and the Americas, such that Galileo was the first person, in fact, on the boats that made it to the Americas, and thus the Americas were not named the Americas, they were named the Galilees. This was my dream, right? We were called like Galileans. And the United States was called the United States of Galilee. And the Americas were the Galilees. Right? This was my dream. I shit you not that I had this fucking dream. And I'm sorry. but the takeaway of it all was that instead of being a bunch of fucking religious nuts, right, which we are, right, because of our special dispensation as descendants of fucking this medieval nut job Columbus, instead we were like a bunch of vexed rationalists. Right? We were all Galileans. That was my dream. Thank you all.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michael Martin Shea. Thank you to Sean and Rodrigo and Henry for putting this together and like inviting me to be part of this like just fucking phenomenal reading. Jesus Christ. And as you can tell, I've been like really fucking academic all weekend and analytical, and like I feel like the poison coming back into me. I like that. So I'm going to read a number of poems, an unknown number, and some are from a manuscript that came out as a chapbook called To Hell with Good Intentions, and some are from a manuscript that's coming out as a chapbook called I'm Sorry, But None of This Is My Fault, and some are from a manuscript that's more ludic and threatening called Demons Are Real. And they don't have titles. Titles are difficult. I suppose I had no good intentions, but found myself interpolated nevertheless by the blue-eyed children of the casket. The death room looms skyward like a moth, sphincters tighten, gravitational force excess of mothering symptoms. I highway myself into the darker portions of the national fabric and remain for hours, unnoticed as a toad. The dull clink of frothing in the dawn's abatement, plastic Adirondack chairs stacked like books beneath the eaves. Do the others have truth inside them? Vatic impulses or impure thoughts, down in the coulee, down in the unseen parts, down in the manicured whiteness, down in the DIY apocalypse garden. Another blindness hides inside the spigot, routine gust of hateful wind against the downspout. Is this scream diegetic, or is this dog's breath diegetic? I will kill you if you critique my prose style. I will kill you if you move against my son. Nothing is ever on time. The night saunters into the canyon, which would become his sepulcher. The world simply happens to him, as it does to me. Each morning I author the zygote of my affliction and watch it wither like a commitment. Sunshine threatens the physic, traffic barks like a puppy. The room lurched as if it had remembered something and then settled into its loss like a sweater. I would like to bring a child into a fallen world in order to redeem it, or at least provide a comfort and distraction to myself in times of trouble. The death mask becomes you, the lubricant becomes you. Repentance lingers like a fart. In my dream I bivouac by the waters of the spring and am softly rocked into a kind of of transcendence not undone by waking. The earth heaves towards its conceptual limits. Beer comes down like a blessing. I found her dreaming once, and I still have not recovered. In those days, I had neither form nor function, but was blessed by the irradiance of the vulpine bulb. Fungal ruin, a weak spot in the nudity of your eyeliner fluid, dilapidated insect kingdom from which I am to be evicted. Skeins of multi-generational daughter trauma stretch blearingly into my nether regions, televangelist patois ballad. I do-sex myself under the great uterine abundance, an orgasm of birdsong and polymer. In the quiet hours, I could sense what had been done to me, but was unable to picture it. The thin wags of cloud taunt me like cane smoke. You have approximately 2,600 Saturdays remaining in this lifetime, and an unknown number beyond. When you die, you'll take me with you like the ice caps. A pubis breaches the bathwater. The bereavement attendant saunters on the lawn. The talking heads were surprised by the gunmen, though they were soon thick as thieves. The not masses or the dictionary, and when the trinkets crack, then the bad things happen. Poach my brain in a soup of pornography, anesthetize me with ass fucking, melt my spine into a supine position, avenge my tormentors with a retinue of dog dicks. Rubberneckers hover over the Republic. Jackals cackle in the armoire. Mostly I'm amazed to be still capable of grief, gasping for breath in someone else's bathrobe, in someone else's bedroom, in someone else's familial structures detached from my body and marveling at the spectacle of it all. Hens cluck at me from the houses of the wealthy. Tattoos linger like a viral load. When this stream ends, I will join a militia to hunt oil executives through the lazy canals of the eastern seaboard. A bullet buzzes like an alarm clock. There are no good trains to place your head in front of anymore. Crimsons cover the freeway of the future. Musical notation enters its decline. A cloud's collapse is nothing like a father's, empty like the lyric is, ornered by the operation of its thought. I go outside rarely, spread my creams with pink hands sick from washing. Pink is an index to an elsewhere, a notion inclement like the two sticks, which make the weather happen. The wantonness of drinking has begun. I return to the reason for everything, and whispering into the mic I'll say, there goes one who knows where the guns are. Unclasping my undignified rucksack in the margin of the help wanted ads, I spit host from my mouth like a provost when the people say good day to labor. I'll circle the eggs around my cabin, with your petrified language so clever. There goes one who knows how to wire. A puppet, a pipe bomb, a wedding reception. Now my God, will you leave me alone? Curds and coffee linger like the interminable need for friends, or our parents in their heaven of polymers, ensconced in the strictures of capital, opaque the way the ocean is in the North Atlantic, and elsewhere too, I guess. I can no longer see it, the surface of the knowable world like a map stuck in the glove box of a car now compacted, whose roads are gone, and whose roads are these, unpaved and so desirous of it, balls of prophecy in the nutsack of the real. I make the cursor move inside my mind. A roughness hewn to belief in cities functions, under the auspices of a suspicious sun which will not wait for us to walk back our claim upon the other. You dig in, asking the many particulars their names. People see my life changing. A town square suffers the weight of desire. Glass noodles fill a warming room. And the cheap paper we print our flyers on. Marvelous hues stark against the tiredness of wine. Of the window you told me once you believed it saved you, and I was jealous. The people that we walk through on the way to where we're going, what they think they're here for, are they real to us? Rough year unfolding as if it had been wrapped inside a large and malevolent present. I have been careless with my memories. Decades pass above us as the clouds would have. A rhombus is a witness. Each triangle tells a story. The princess repeats her catechism and departs the planet, leaving the nation in her wake. Gardenias wither, onions wither, threesomes depend. Each morning I wrap the long forest around me like a bandage and descend into that other place of which I told you once. A weapon rests on the floorboards. A list of judges circulates among the volunteers. The driver didn't seem to see us as he approached, then stopped in the middle of the road and began rolling his windows up and down, first with the buttons, then with his hands. The dream will not prepare you. Cocaine will not prepare you. The long arm stretches into my office and stays there, curling its fingers as if to beg of me a promise or a child. The angle of the angel's ascent had been given. The heron rose as if it were the sun. Thank you.
Keep it going for Michael Martin Shea and all of our readers tonight. I've been given the impossible task to sum up what we just saw this evening, and the only thing that made sense to me was to splice it together into a kento or a cento or a cento, however you say it, I've heard it all ways, a collage. Titles are difficult, I agree with you, Michael. This is, I think, called impact into the driver's seat or a cloud lowered into the ground. Everyone, and definitely the speaker here, I think, is Splice, which is not us at the mic, it's part of it, but of course you that have come through, sojourners and locals alike, and we love you, we thank you, we so deeply appreciate you. I know we say it every time, but it's because we must. Everyone loves me when they're drunk. A glistening I followed everywhere, the way it works, or whatever. Another one of these big ones, please. I looked at a wall and saw a window, guillotined and spliced, this psychic house that exists everywhere, the sound everyone in Brooklyn wanted. Such is the new axis of evil. Instability issues the plan. I think you might be sick. Perfection, perfection, perfection. I highway myself into the darker portions of the national fabric, down in the DIY apocalypse garden. Can we please have all of our poets come up and let's shower them with electric roses with the sound of two hands together, please.